Okay, one of my papers for film history class, I wrote about the Lubitz style. And this is definitely one of those that fits into the whole nostalgia, the whole the keys of what's a Lubitz style. And I think we can explain a little bit to you.
Yeah, because this is my first time watching a film directed by Ernest Lubitz.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I've been celebrating that this year with 2021. It's been like my first with a lot of directors that I've just missed out on before.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun as we close out 2021 for me to just sneak like one more in.
It's nice, yeah. This is our Patreon request, so we're going to do one that's always a kind of a regular for holidays.
Yep. So go outside, check your mail, and then come on back and we'll talk shop around the corner. All right, welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, and once again, thanks for finding us, and thanks for watching, and thanks for our loyal viewers who continue to support the show. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram. We got some great options on the Patreon. This is a Patreon Select Film. If you're interested, you can check it on there, click down, and you get to pick the movies that we choose. Today we're going to do a holiday classic, Shop Around the Corner.
Yeah, thank you again, Brian Eggert, for that Patreon selection to close out the year. So the Shop Around the Corner, Mr. Kralik can't stand the newly hired Mrs. Novak at the Budapest store that he works. The two seem to have nothing in common except that they each have pen pals. While they both spend their days creating conflict with one another, they are unaware that they are each other's pen pals, and through their correspondence, they are falling in love.
I'm going to try to explain it. There's a lot of different interpretations of what the Lubitz style is. It's basically silliness mixed in with seriousness, but you don't really get a lot of whiplash for it, right? It's the contrast, but you don't really like it. You buy into it. And the best part of a Lubitz style, I think the best example in this movie is when James Stewart kicks out Vertus out of the store.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very serious. I mean, he's cheating.
He punches the guy.
But he fumbles, and what happens is fumbles, and the music box kicks in. It's the harken back to the old music. So it's a little bit of silly play. It's a little bit outrageous, but you buy into it that all the events are happening. Buy into the movie. It's kind of a laugh, but you're like, it's a serious moment too.
So it's like never letting the film hit too serious of a place. Like every time, it's almost like how they do it with scare and horror movies, followed up by like a joke or like something like to kind of lighten the humor. Is that we never let the film get too serious. Basically, Requiem for a Dream is not a Lubitz style film.
No, but it, like when she reaches in the mailbox and there's no letter. Well, you don't go over exaggeration with like but you just like it just kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, like you can see the disappointment forming, but it never again hits. So you're kind of saying like it's schmaltz that doesn't feel like schmaltz.
Right.
Because that's really a tough thing to do.
Yes.
I don't know if any current film does it except for the one that comes to mind is Paddington, about the bear. That hits a level of like schmaltz that's never like too gooey, even though it's a talking sentient bear. Yes. So I think I wonder if you could say that Lubitz style does not exist anymore for the most part.
It'd be tough to do, right?
Yeah.
I think Billy Wilder did it with The Apartment, but it's tough to do.
Yeah, I think with the advent of color in film, it almost seems like things just like every time you take a step closer to realism in film, you just becomes harder and harder to create these schmaltz without schmaltz.
So it's a mixture of like lightness but seriousness, and not really too dark, but not really too light as well. So Ernest Lubitz is one of those German filmmakers that came over to America, and pretty much like a lot of German filmmakers he's the trailblazer almost. So a lot of the movies that like Fritz Lang and everybody came after him, and Robert Wien from Cabin of Dr. Caligari, he kind of introduced German filmmakers to Hollywood. And he got recruited by Mary Pickford, who was one of the three United Artists, like Charlie Chaplin, I think her, and I can't remember the third one, United Artists, which started their own company.
It's like the third of the tenors. You don't even know the other one.
Yeah.
It is interesting because this being the first film of his I've seen, and he calls it the best picture I ever made in my life. That's what he had quoted as actually saying in his, I think it was an autobiography. He was quoted as saying it was his best picture. So I feel like I've got this problem now, nowhere to go but down. But that's not a slight. It's just, it was a very enjoyable little movie. Before I had known that it was based on a play.
Okay, yeah.
I said this is like a filmed play.
It is.
And it's kind of nice to have like I like those movies where there's almost like one central setting and people are coming and going. Yeah. I like PlayLike Movies. My big thing about them is, especially recently, I've been saying they need to become cinematic. Like when you transfer them to the film medium, they need to feel cinematic. And I think with the light touch of the environment outside, getting to see like the changing of the seasons, I think the light touch of the musical accompaniment and being able to, I guess, spend more time with those like longer scenes with the camera not cutting. I think that allows for a little bit of like interplay between the play and the film. Because I was critical of Fences. I said I loved Fences as a movie, but I said it's just basically the play put to film, and I want a cinematic translation. And I think there's enough in Shop Around the Corner that makes it feel cinematic without losing what the play was.
Yeah, it's almost like Ernest Lubitz filmed a play as it's happening. You almost feel like the audience is behind the camera watching the play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's ready to be a laugh
And
track
how-
or something.
Right, and how you do it. Well, I don't think you ever see anybody's feet. I think he shoots it like waist up, like how we are throughout the whole movie, right? So it's almost like a soap opera, which keeps the camera at the same angle throughout the whole events, which makes it almost a little bit soapy at the same time.
That's why Tarantino probably doesn't like the movie. There's no feet in it.
It's right. You don't
It's a
feet, no
footless
feet.
movie.
But it's you do have a lot of wide shots. The intro is very nice. You have a little boy come in, and then you have the people stand around waiting for the store to open. Frank Morgan plays the shop owner, Mr. Palodichuk.
Yep.
And he's the wizard from Wizard of Oz. I mean, he can do 100 movies. He did 100 movies, but he's always going to be regarded as
Yeah,
the
I
wizard.
pegged him without even thinking about it. Because again, I've seen The Wizard of Oz numerous times, but I don't think of it as a movie with actors. Like it's an experience. It's part of my memory. It's Wizard of Oz.
Yeah,
like
it's
as
everybody,
if I
yeah.
went on the journey instead of watched the movie. And so seeing Frank Morgan show up, I was like, huh. Wizard. Like it was just it's a second guess thing. And that's why I guess when he I was surprised to find him as realistic and human of a character as we see him in the movie.
Yeah.
His character
I agree.
Palodichuk is a very flawed person. He finds out his wife is cheating or believes she to be cheating, and what does he assume? He
It's
just
gotta be
assumes it's got to be the guy that
Jimmy
he's trusted his entire life.
Jimmy
you know?
Stewart, right? Yeah, it's almost like his character is always like second guessing himself throughout the whole film.
Yep.
And where Jimmy Stewart's always, I know I'm right, and I'm gonna stick to it.
Yep.
With contrast. And yeah, I like their I always look for contrast, and this is a great contrast of Frank Morgan and Jimmy Stewart in this movie.
Well, and what's funny is that they
Young
work,
and old, too.
those contrasts work really well because he doesn't know what to do. He's constantly changing his mind, like with the music box. But Stewart is the one who's like, "No, you're doing this," and he's like, "Oh, thank goodness, I don't have to pick." Like that's kind of how he feels
Right.
with that. But then he also has that give and take of like, I don't want to have to pick, but I also don't like I should get another point of view. He still can't like fully trust him, and that divide is widened as the assumption starts to grow. He doesn't even wait till he gets the actual facts back. He just starts to break down his relationship with someone he's trusted his entire life to the point where he doesn't even and as soon as he realizes I've made a mistake, he goes to correct it, but again does even second guesses like what he should do about his own situation.
Yes.
And that happens when he's walking by on Christmas Eve and seeing all the sales happening. Is he even second guesses like, should I have put him in charge? Maybe I should still be in charge. Like
It's always that I'm not sure of myself all the time.
Mhm.
You made a decision. I've been thinking about this for 8 hours. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Margaret Sullivan is the female in this movie. Now, she was a notorious bully in Hollywood.
Mhm.
She notoriously would go in the office and throw things until she got her way. When she she used to go out with William Powell before William Powell started dating Jean Harlow, and she would have eruptions at parties, so she was a classic getting her way. But it's never known in this film. She's such a softie in this
Yeah.
film. She's not really all that stubborn at all.
kind of the joke that you say she must be a great actress because I didn't know that
She could be
she
such
was
a
kind
bull.
of such a mean person.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I always thought about someone like Marlon Brando. I would never work with Marlon Brando given the opportunity because I've heard so many awful stories about working with Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
But you can't deny the results.
Right, you're gonna get. You work with Brando. It's a full package, right? You're gonna get. It's a headline.
Yeah.
You get the opportunity. You just put something you can put in a resume, but it's gonna be a group work. Yeah. And then Joseph Schildkraut is the Vardis, right? He's the one to get kicked out. He's a very sophisticated person. He's very different from Jimmy Stewart as well. Contrast is my favorite. But this is 3 years after he won an Oscar for, I think, The Life of Emily Zola. If I can
Yeah.
figure it,
Yeah.
I can figure it
Emily
out in my
Zola.
head. Yeah. So he's the only one of them out of the whole cast that won an Oscar in this film. But this is before Jimmy Stewart really got famous. This is like babyface Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I just kept waiting for him to be like, you're not a very good person. I was
Right.
waiting for him to really dive into that It's a Wonderful Lifeism that we always remember him from, and I believe he was in one of the airport movies as well.
Yes, it was the last one.
Yeah.
It was the last one.
But
yeah, this
that
is before
actor
he-
was funny because I thought you could have probably drawn you could have drawn horns on his head and he would have been that classic depiction of the conniving devil.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's just got that wicked lisp and that strong chin and bone structure that makes you just go, I can't trust you.
But that's the whole part of Ernest Lubitz is like it's very like somebody like Wes Craven would take it amp it up like a very bad guy, a very good guy. Where here it's almost like, well, they're charming. You're having a nice, sophisticated conversation, but you're really mean to each other.
Yeah. And when you
insulting too.
When you find out his character's secrets, I guess you think to yourself, I should have seen that coming. I didn't, because I was just I was, I guess, very confused by like this idea. I thought maybe James Stewart's character had definitely been the cheater.
No, that's
so,
the whole,
as
if you
it's
see it for the
happening,
first
I'm
time,
like, why do I like him? I don't like him. I'm not supposed to like him. And so then when you kind of get the realization, all the pieces fall into place, you kind of think to yourself, I guess I tend to judge more classic and again like potentially schmaltzy movies as being very cut and dry. So I didn't expect there to be...
And there's a little bit of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all that mixture. You think it's soft and swarmy and gooey, but it's also very cut and dry, too. There's intentionally, he sits them... It's one of those famous scenes that they're sitting at the two different tables, but they're the ones having conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you always see that in rom-coms. I'm dating this person, but I'm going to talk to you still.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It's almost like, I don't care. But... yeah, it's all the ingredients of what we see from rom-coms, but it's not really a rom-comedy. I wouldn't put it in a rom-comedy, even though it has that warm sense to it.
I don't know. I feel like I would put it in with that, but I don't slight the rom-com either, though. Like I think a rom-com, like the greatest rom-com to me of all time is When Harry Met Sally. And like I love when a movie, when the comedy feels real, where it's derived from the characters, where the romance feels real.
That's a lot of dialogue heavy,
and
too.
both of those films are very similar in the way that they don't treat their main characters as love interests for a large bulk of the movie. And then like the pieces start clicking into place.
That's the trope of rom-coms. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Exactly, yeah. But like new rom-coms, newer ones, a lot of the times I kind of tend to agree, like it's the same story. No one's telling it in a
running in the
way.
airport, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's even the joke in Love Actually where they say, "I want to have one of those moments where I run through the airport to stop the woman I love," and it's like, and then they go ahead and do it, and it's like that you're feeding into it, man. Yeah.
Cinematographer is William H. Daniels. Now, he's the only cinematographer Greta Garbo would ever work with. She regarded him as the person that could capture my lighting. So he did Grand Hotel, which he was in, Ninotchka, and then he did one of my favorite noirs, The Naked City, which I think he won Best Cinematography for. And a lot of his street scenes were kind of the template of how you do street scenes from after that film in 1949. A very almost like Gonzo, like cut the script and almost like Man with the Moving Camera from Russia. He would use that, a very streetwise and scope and intimacy. So William H. Daniels is one of the most accomplished cinematographers, and you could understand watching this, even though he's limited, he's still stagnant, but he lets the camera move at the right times. So it's not like what we say in French Connection, like where are we going with the camera? Documentary. This is almost intentional, but it doesn't seem like it's ever really moving.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that can really aid when you do a play as a film, though, too, is to have someone who's focused on, because you can't have that frenetic style with a play on film because none of the characters are going anywhere. They're all in the business.
They're all standing by the door with the newspapers.
Like, James Stewart went to the door. Like that's oh my god. Like it's not a surprising thing. So you almost have to have cadence where the camera is moving just enough to remind you're watching a movie and not a play. Like just enough to keep it from being that stock image where the camera never shifts. And I have trouble with that, because it works really well here. Kind of like you forget that the camera's moving. You forget that you're in a scene, and that's kind of what makes you feel like you're sitting not just next to the stage, on the stage.
Right, and then you have to do when they're on the ladder. When you do the camera, you set it up, and then the two on the ladder. But then you have to go up on the ladder with the camera to shoot Jimmy Stewart's scene. Mm-hmm. Then you got to do her scene. Yep. So there's a lot more work to it than it seems. Because I'm trying to. It seems lazy when you just set the camera on a stilt and just shoot the action. But there is a lot of hard work to it as well. Mm-hmm. It's very deceiving cinematography. Well,
there's a tendency. Certain directors, certain cinematographers also kind of sway towards my job is to capture the performance.
Yeah.
Certain DPs, certain directors also go with my job is to shoot the movie and the actors better do their part. And there's kind of there's a little bit of go between for certain people, but those are the two camps that you can really be in. And I guess this is one where, especially when the film hinges on performance, because there's no explosions or no one introduces Chekhov's gun. But it's got to just be like you've got to make sure that your performances are tight, because this movie, anything else could fail in the movie. As long as the performances work, the movie can work.
Especially the ending. The ending is the perfect, because it's not always like it's that Luba Style again, where it's not too much gooey, but it's not really all that seriousness, and the lighting is just about right, where it's not overbearing like Casablanca, but it's just the right mixture of everything. Almost balanced.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the opposite visual aesthetic from the Casablanca throw a bunch of lights on the pretty girl's face. With this one, it's like just throw a ton of darkness in there and we'll just give just enough light,
single light
for you
but
to see
right,
everyone.
Yeah, that single light, but it's not really starch.
Yeah.
But it's just enough to just illuminate everybody the right way.
What's funny is that the movie, this is something that I'm not used to yet watching classic films still, is I'm not used to the no credits at the end. So in my heart, I'm always like subtracting 10 minutes from the runtime of every movie for credits. And you and I have seen a couple of like 2.5 hour long movies recently where it's like you could subtract 20 minutes from the credit, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas this is funny because I always have the time, you know, up with me because I like to track kind of plot points and like where things are going, how much time is spent in certain ways. And when I realize that there's like 4 minutes left of this movie, I'm like,
where are we going?
We got to do the thing, don't we? We got to do the You've Got Mail thing. What I found interesting though is I haven't seen You've Got Mail since it came out, so forgive me. They don't find out about each other in You've Got Mail until the last scene.
I think it was like at the Space Needle, right? If I remember right. Yeah,
Whereas
almost like a fair to remember a little bit.
Whereas like this one, I mean, he finds out relatively early. I was kind of surprised by that story.
And he holds back, right?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a. Part of me is like contemplating like why would you hold back? But I guess when you don't like somebody for who they are in person, maybe you want to kind of try to cadence in, you know, like the romantic angle. But it's just kind of a funny risk that he's taking the whole time because she could find out and think, you know, this movie made 80 years later, we'd be thinking like catfish, he's catfishing her. But like we don't have that here.
We don't. It's the different. Like nowadays, it'll be a text message, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not a mail. Email.
Hey, you up?
Right, you up, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have all the ingredients to do another version of it. It's a kind of a classic. It's almost in its own little warped little area.
When we talk about like the changing scenery
like
of rom-coms as they are,
yeah.
This movie can almost be blamed for creating this type of a rom-com because it does happen pretty often. I mean, of course, it's got some official remakes here. I've got In the Good Old Summertime, which was the 1949, I think, the musical.
Yes.
That was adapted.
Right, I forgot about that.
We have She Loves Me, 1963 Broadway show. Of course, we've got You've Got Mail, which I don't think hinges itself as a remake, but it uses the same general idea. And even the Tamil language film from 1996, Kadal Katai, which is another like pretty close adaptation of this idea of film. And that's just, those are the ones that we officially recognize. But this kind of idea has been done to death. And so in a way,
template, right?
It's tough if you haven't seen that film for the first time. You know, I went into it knowing, I knew the movie. I was like, I know what
right.
this
It's
movie
one of those,
is.
right.
And so you have to go into it realizing this is the first one. It created the tropes that everything else is stolen from.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those timeless classics that's perfect timing for us to review it. If you haven't seen it, it's almost like you've already seen it because, like you said, it's been done so many times before that you already know what's going to go before you even get there. But that's part of the journey.
Yeah. So overall, I don't have a lot of like. I don't want to say anything that I like really didn't. There's nothing I hated about the movie. I wish, kind of like when we talked about The Long Halloween, I wish that the time passage felt a little bit more
genuine. Right?
Well, yeah, because it opens up during the
summer
sale.
Leaves and
it opens up with the summer sale, and I don't really think I really paid attention to the weather that much in the film until it was snowing. And I just wish that there was a little bit more guidance of time passage, because again, he mentions near the end of the film these last 6 months, such and such, and that was when it really hit me, like, oh my God, 6 months? Because it just felt like not much time had passed, and I would have liked a little bit more of that. That's maybe my one true fault in the film, is that I didn't realize or buy the passage of time until it was revealed.
I think the duration time is not the emphasis point, right? Because almost like they put up the Christmas tree, like where did this happen?
Yeah.
Where did we start with this? Right. Yeah.
But those are the things that I would look at there. Everything else I thought was really well made. It's a film that I don't know if it'd be like it's kind of got that Christmas style to it, where it's like it's a nice piece of sugar cookie that you can eat on Christmas.
Yes.
And not have to worry about gaining weight until the new year. You know?
Right. It's one of those that it doesn't really, it stays with you, but it doesn't really like harshly. It just like, oh yeah, I remember that. It's kind of, and then you go back to like, I remember this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice warm blanket, I think, of a movie, and that's works just fine for me.
Yeah. So have you seen Shop Around the Corner?
Yeah, let us know your thoughts down below. I know that I've got some colleagues of mine that watched it because of You've Got Mail, There's some people that I know that really love You've Got Mail that watch this movie because of it. So, do you have a preference? Do you prefer the other one? Do you prefer You've Got Mail? Did you watch Kadal Katai? And do you like that more?
I'm gonna have to watch those. Right.
So let us know your thoughts, because this play has been adapted and the film has been remade a couple of different times. If you have a preference over this one, let us know in the comment section down below. Is there another Ernest Lubitz film you'd like us to cover?
Luba Style. You got to write a paper
Season
on it.
4, yeah.
Oh man,
I feel like I need that as a T-shirt. Luba Style. Let us know down there, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And as Nick pointed out too, you can go ahead and check out that Patreon for all the different available options to join the Patreon and help support the show. We really do appreciate it. And also, like we said, we're coming to the end of the year, so you've got a couple more days left. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, anyone who joins from $1 upwards get at least one Patreon choice in January. So that's an option just going through the end of 2021. So a couple days left. Check out that Patreon down below, and you'll get your options there. Once again, you can find all my film reviews at goatfilmreviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. I can't talk today. Thanks for watching.